Hello and welcome back to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Russia has, for decades, followed a policy designed to fragment European unity. Its primary target has been Germany, where senior politicians and others have been prepared to overlook Russian aggression and Putin's use of energy as a weapon to influence Western policy. Tonight, we explore the controversial ties between powerful German figures and Russian interests, revealing a web of financial entanglements and political alliances. To help us dissect these complex relationships, I'm delighted to welcome Yuri Tabach. He's a former Chief of Staff, NATO Military Liaison Mission in Moscow and a regular contributor. Yuri, welcome back to TV World. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's always good to see you, Ashim, and thank you for giving me this honorable title as a regular contributor to TVP World.
Delighted to do that. It's absolutely true. So I mean, there seems to be a whole list of influential Germans who have questionable ties with Russia, and I'd like to go through a couple of them, starting with an award-winning German journalist, Hubert Schiepel, who's received 600,000 euros from a company that's connected to a friend of Putin's, a billionaire called Alexei Mordashov, who's been sanctioned, by the way. And this came out in recently released documentation. It's been reported in a consortium of newspapers, including Der Spiegel and The Guardian of the UK. So, what is the goal here? From the Russian perspective, getting a journalist on board in this way.
Well, Hashim, no offense to you, and you definitely do not fit that category. But you're part of probably the oldest profession in the world in that sense. And the Russians, no, they buy people. I mean, it goes back to to Attila the Hun. It goes back to when they would buy and sell people and then buy them back, but much cheaper. And Russians have done it throughout the history. And today, when they're very good at it. And today, Mr. Putin, who you have a book on there, is a KGB thug who perfected those things. They have bought not only journalists, they bought politicians. We know some that that received money from them directly, or their children, their son, their daughter, their wife, or they got. We had in my world there were many spies, American spies. If Russian spies worked for us not for money but because of the ideology, then our spies worked for Russia purely for money. They were purely bought, including Ames and Haynes and other spies like that. So this KGB thug knows very, very well, and the best way to do it is to split our society, to pin Ukrainians against Poles, to split the Polish society in the right and left, Democrats, Republicans, split the Ukrainian society, pro-Poroshenko, pro-Zelensky. Whatever they find differences when we have in a democratic society, we're all different, we all have different ideas. They will use it, and usually they will use it with money. They buy it. And I think Germany has been historically corrupt in that sense. So we know that the former prime minister Chancellor of Germany worked for the Russian oil company and lobbied for Putin. We know that Angela Merkel, here she is, has been very friendly. She's an old Komsomol gal or a junior Communist Party leader who is very, very friendly to Putin and did a lot of things in Germany that projected advancement of Putin and his aggression in Ukraine. And now we see that they're, out in the open buying journalists and the writers. And for 600,000 euros, people can be bought. You know, people will sell their soul for that kind of money, which I'm surprised they paid that much. Usually they don't pay that much.
Oh, is that right? Well, but what's in it for the journalist? I mean, here he is, right? He's on track.
600,000 euros.
Okay, but now it's out. The rest of his working life is basically tainted as a result of this. Fairly short-term thinking, unless, of course, he's going to stay on Putin's payroll, or expects to at least.
Well, I mean, we know, you know, I'm not saying because the jury is still out on that, but in my country, the scandal is going on that President Biden and his son took each $5 million from Burisma. So, I mean, for God's sake, $5 million for a president of the United States, this is not a very big bribe. I mean, but that's the rumor is, I mean, people sell their soul for way less.
Right.
600,000 euros is a nice sum. You and I have to work our entire lives.
Indeed.
To make that kind of money.
Indeed we do. So, okay.
If we're lucky. If we're lucky.
Indeed, we'll Gary, if we're lucky. So okay, so let's I mean, I'm assuming now, talking about Gerhard Schroeder, who became chairman of Nord Stream, the Nord Stream project. Yeah. I'm assuming you believe that was his motivation as well, the financial.
It's difficult for me to say what their motivation is. One doesn't cancel the other. Maybe they believe that the communist world, that the communist ideas are good, that the KGB is good, that SS is good, that the Gestapo is good. Plus, on top of that, they make a lot of money on it. So the combination of those things is a perfect life. Today, in the United States, we have another scandal going on where there's a millionaire or billionaire and his wife apparently been sponsoring an American Communist Party. So for Workers' Party, they have been contributing millions of dollars. The one party that also supports Hamas and pays for the demonstrations in the United States for the Hamas supporters. So here are these millionaires or billionaires like Soros. They believe that everybody should be equal. Everybody should get their ration of food, of medicine, of housing, and that's a fair system. Yet they themselves made billions for themselves. What motivates these people is beyond me. Why they're doing this is also beyond me, except that there's something, maybe when people become that rich, something goes wrong with them. There was a famous Russian businessman during the imperial times who Morozov, Sava Morozov, who made billions for it in that, you know, he was a billionaire, but he was sponsoring Lenin and the Bolsheviks. Why was he doing that? I mean, there's different schools of thought, but apparently we have these people among us. And interestingly enough, that the working people, the truck drivers, the camera operator in the world talks, people like that, they don't want a revolution. They don't want a proletariat to take over and hand them out rations. They want to work honestly. They want to have good medical care. They want to have vacations and good schools and hospitals for the parents and schools for their children. People don't really want much. They want basic quality things.
Right.
And all of a sudden, those richest people in the world start sponsoring the things. But going back to Putin and why Russians are bribing these people, it's because it works. It works. Okay, it works actually better than wars.
Yeah, well, certainly, you know, they've been very successful in Germany. But how are the German electorate taking this, Gary? And, you know, I mean, isn't this an enormous political risk for a party to be so tainted by so many scandals?
Hashim, I'm very honored that you trust me with my opinion on this, but I'm a military man. I always think in the military structure. If that would happen in our community, in my world of men of war, that person would be court-martialed, would be dishonored. His shoulder boards would be ripped off of him or her for that kind of behavior. But in a political world or diplomatic world, those things tend to be rationalized, and not meaning from a Russian point of view, rationalized in a sense, they have explanation for all these things, that it's not really a bribe, it's not really this, it's not that, we have to be fair, it's not all that simple, and so forth and so forth. And they cloud people's minds with those things that people are saying, oh, well, if it's Merkel, if it's Putin, if it's Biden, if it's Trump, if it's Duda, I mean, these people are very smart. They know better than I do what they're doing. So I just simply have to trust the way they're functioning. And of course, life is unfair. And I'll just go back to my job and do my job as a doctor or my job as a lawyer the best I can. And that's it. I'm too little to influence those things. So, yeah, they're probably tinted and discredited with you and me. But with the people like them, they're probably saying, oh, damn, why didn't I get those 600,000 euros?
Right.
Like this guy, I could have done a better job. I could have done a better job lying about those things. Because I'm a better liar than he is. Those people have no conscience, I think. They're unconscionable. And this is what it is that I'm always very critical of journalists, always asking them for the journalistic ethics. They're like priests. They're like military officers. They're like policemen. Journalists have a huge influence. They're a fourth arm of the law.
Yeah. Well, journalists and, of course, senior politicians, who seem to,
influence things.
Yeah, influence things, but also, behave in ways that perhaps are unexpected. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I did want to talk about Angela Merkel and the fact that, she gave Putin the benefit of the doubt and insisted on continuing with Nord Stream and insisted on believing that peace with Russia under Putin was the way forward, and she seems to have
not contributing to the NATO. They're 2%, as Poland and the United States and the rest of the honest NATO partners did. Right.
Even though it is, of course, the largest economy in Europe. Gary, unfortunately, we're not going to have time this meeting to discuss those, but I look forward to our next one where we can
more. Yes,
look forward to it very much.
You.
Thank you again for taking the time. Take care now, Gary. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
And that's all from us in this edition of World Talks. Good night.